Aduro just had a press release this morning closing a private placement, and I'm sitting down with Yazan. We're going to discuss how much they raised, what the money is for, and all good things like that. So Yazan, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me, Raj. So let's start off with the usual caveat, which is basically that we're both long the stock and we are biased, and obviously, everyone needs to kind of have done their own diligence. So this is not an endorsement. This is our personal opinion. So with that being said, now let's start from the back and go from there. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight is I actually wanted to congratulate you because we're just about, I think, 2 weeks away from the time that you covered Aduro 2 years ago. And when you did so, I think you started covering Aduro when it was around 70 cents Canadian. And in my view, what has happened, although that we are about 90% above that level today, or so, I think the valuation today is actually on a risk-adjusted basis cheaper than when you introduced Aduro. And I don't say that lightly. I just think that when you started covering the company, it didn't have this level of validation that it had today. There was not such a clear path towards the commercial side. There was no engagement from customers, and there wasn't kind of where they are at in terms of the executive team that they have. We'll touch base on them, but I just wanted to kind of highlight this because it's such an important topic.
Yeah, I mean, I remember I visited them and made videos, and they didn't have R2.
Yep.
Yeah, and the topic back then was is R2 going to work? That was the
Yep.
question. Is R2 going to work? And I
Yep.
remember one of the main chemists explained to us why it was going to work. He was
Yep.
talking about asphaltene, how they did it there, and plastic is just the same thing, same chemical or similar chemical composition, and that's why it was going to work. And yeah, since then, we've built not just one, but two R2s,
Yep.
which are working, just like they said. And we've added Shell through the game changer program. Then we've added 5 other multi-billion-dollar companies. We've added Eric. We've added other team members. And as Eric said in one of the interviews, they have like over 20 companies that are like in the process of talking with them or being interested. So it's a completely different story. Completely.
Yeah. So that's why I said, in my view, because it is sometimes people say, "Am I late?" And my answer is, you're actually probably in a better spot of entry than when this was introduced 2 years ago because it got de-risked. Now, today, we got de-risked further. And this is very important for everyone that's invested in Enduro, including us. Why? Because you do want, as an investor, in a company that is generating some revenue, but not significant yet. You do want to see that there is other money that comes in at higher valuation. And one of the things that I love about this team and, what they've been able to achieve is they've been able to protect the existing shareholders in every raise that they've done. From the one that you got involved in, the one that I got involved in before, every time they raise, not a lot, they raise what they need, but they put a new watermark and a new placeholder, and they seem to get a new type of money that is willing to come in and join them for the ride. And that speaks to the value proposition in my view, and to a few other things, to the fact that today, you and I know that about more than half of this raise is coming from Europe and the Middle East. And the reason is that today these types of investors, they will not sit on a bid and try to accumulate a few 100,000 shares. It's almost impossible for someone to buy into a 25 million float. It's a very tiny float. Management owns 42% of the company. A lot of the big shareholders have this mindset similar to us, which is not set it and forget it, but review as they we continue our diligence, but we have no interest in the short term of what happens to the share price. If it goes up 10%, am I happier on my PNL? Of course, but it's not it's not where I'd like to exit. And I'm assuming that's the same on your side, because people here like forget about what we're talking about. We're talking about this massive opportunity of 450 million tons of waste plastic, and that's one vertical every year being produced. And today, all other 70 technologies that are out there, they are not able to recycle more than, or they say 10%, but let's say less than 10% gets recycled. So de facto, we are sitting in a very sweet spot, because all the other technologies that we are aware of, they cannot tackle what Aduro tackles. They can't touch contaminated plastic. And more recently, one of the things that came up was the cross-linked polymers. Cross-linked polymers, I think, till today, I don't think the market appreciated this announcement. The yield on cross-linked or rubber tires is, in my view, like a phenomenon of its own. And the reason is that today you opened a new segment or a new vertical, sub-vertical, call it, that is a main social problem and a big problem that none of the existing solutions also offer an effective solution. So the same problem that we said before about waste plastic, with 90% of waste plastic not being able to be recycled, most of rubber tires, the most common solution that is out there is also thermal, or you burn them, which is significant, which results in significant amount of CO2 emissions. It results in significant impact on the environment, and it's not even an effective solution. And that's why I say the reason why you see this level of interest from investors is people are not dumb. They can see smart money can see the writing on the wall. They can see that these things matter, but as an investor, I won't show my hand. I won't go and put a bid for 500,000 shares or try to buy 10,000 shares at a time. You don't know what can happen in 6 weeks, in 6 months. That's the other thing that people misconstrued in some of the conservatism that comes with this management, because they don't want to overstate what they are working on. They gave us the highlights. They said, we are working towards a collaboration or two this year. We're going to start with commencing R3 this year, and we're going to finish it next year. They did not. Every time last year, they did the same thing. They said, we're going to build the two R2s, and we might have a couple of surprises. And they did. They delivered all that and some. So this management team, one of the things that people keep bringing up is, well, there's nothing to be excited for the rest of the year. How do you know? There's a lot to be excited for. The existing valuation on its own is pretty much so undervalued that this is, again, it gives you a massive opportunity to the upside just by the fact that further investors want to get involved, or a collaboration, or, as you said, maybe potentially they can move from this tiny exchange to a bigger exchange in the next 6 to 12 months, and they can ultimately give us this a broader opening that we currently don't have. Because, as you and I know, the OTC stocks generally, they're not easily accessible, right? I mean, you talk about that a lot.
But
So
talking about valuation, right? So the main thing on the valuation that you hear is, well, how come is it undervalued? It doesn't show up in the EBITDA. It doesn't show up that it's undervalued based on revenues.
that's something that's almost like again, I think it's the wrong comparison. It's comparing apples to oranges. So today, okay, as I was like preparing for this, I was thinking, okay, well, we know that just the two problems that we talked about, the waste plastic and the rubber tires. Let's leave the bitumen, let's leave the renewables, the rest of the stuff that they're working on. Let's put that aside. We know certain companies that are addressing a very small, tiny part of that, such as AGLX, 250 million US, such as Pure Cycle, a billion core, including the debt, 900 million in equity. And then you have even private companies such as Brightmark, Mura, Lysella, the like. They all have funded themselves over $1 billion. So you look at each one of these solutions. Agilex is a pyrolysis solution. Again, the old technology. And one of the things that is actually interesting is if you go and Google Agilex, and one of their pilots with ExxonMobil failed, and it failed to commercialize. Despite that, the market is still giving them this valuation, and it's a pyrolysis solution. We've seen how much trouble Pure Cycle have gone through. They've had so many stoppages on their one commercial unit, and they're still a 900 million US market cap. And to remind everyone again, they don't own the technology. It's licensed from Procter & Gamble. They have one commercial unit. It is not operational. And yet the market is willing to bet on them. Why? Because the funds and the larger investors can see the writing on the wall that this problem needs a solution. And all the existing solutions are not effective. So you cannot keep saying, well, it doesn't matter. No, of course it matters. If you look at the landscape that you're in, we're significantly undervalued, but it's not I mean, you can't keep ignoring waste plastic. You can't just say, you know what, if no one cares about it, it's fine. No, it's not. We have 8 billion tons of waste plastic that's accumulated. We have to have a solution for. So someone is going to invest in this. Someone is going to come in and say, I want this solution. And if you're offering a yield that is what Aduro is offering, which is you're offering on the, I know it's a smaller sample, on the PP, they got 95%. 95% yield, like, when you're comparing it to everything out there that is top 70%, you're taking, just so that people realize how big this is. For every ton of waste plastic that's coming in the process, you're losing at least 30% through pyrolysis. and you're getting a lower, based on their most recent document, you're getting a low value fuel or diesel. That then, what do you have to do? You have to go and upgrade it through a petrochemical process. So the amount of capex comparing to a Aduro solution versus pyrolysis or thermal solutions is leaps and bounds. So when we say it is, guys, it is so undervalued. It's not because we're exaggerating. We're looking at the landscape that's around it, and we're like, like 1+1 = 2. You guys don't want to see it. That's fine. Someone will. And this financing that we saw close today is an example or a confirmation again that someone is seeing it for what it is. That $3.5 million of hard dollars came into the treasury at $1.30 CAD per share because these people can see that upside from where they're at. And that's something that we have to, like, again, at one point, you can't contain this in a financing, so they have to go in the market. Or at one point, they're going to, be on a bigger exchange that interest is going to come and be reflected in the market. And, to take it a step back, now, what does the $3.5 million mean for us? The $3.5 million as of, as of February, as of the end of February, the company was sitting at around like $4.5 million. So they burn about 500,000 CAD per month. So as of the end of May, so right now, they should have been sitting at $3 million. They just raised 3.5. Let's call it, they pay, commission and so on, a couple $100,000. So they're sitting over $6 million CAD. Now in July, because you own some of these warrants, there are warrants of 1.26 million warrants that come free trading literally in a month. And these are deep in the money. So they're going to get exercised. So suddenly we have a company that has 7 million CAD or more in their treasury. And you recall R3 costs anywhere between $5 to $7 million. So, and let's say that they need a year worth of burn, so that's another $6 million. So we have enough in the treasury to get going on R3. We have enough in the treasury to see through the working capital for the next 8-9 months. In the next 8-9 months, there's another batch of warrants that come in. So again, another major de-risking event just took place. And for the next little while, really, if you want to get involved, you have to buy in the open market.
But there's a difference between R3 and R2. And it's not just the difference in size, but R2 is a small unit that's mostly used for testing results for various clients. R3 is going to be like a commercial unit where Aduro is going to be generating revenues and profits from it.
Yep. So you nailed it. So, Ofer was very wide ranged when he said the amount and how much we process. Okay. So he said as low as 1 ton, and he said as high as 10 tons. So that's kind of a huge range. And obviously, again, he's erring on the side of caution. But regardless, when you are getting a ton for free, because this waste plastic, no one wants to touch it. It's a waste, contaminated waste plastic. People want to pay you to take it off their hands. Okay. Now, every ton that you process, you're going to make anywhere between 500 and 1,500 US dollars per ton. It's massive. It's suddenly you're
Are you
not.
talking? Are you talking profit?
You're talking about revenue, but let's take it a step further. What is the cost if someone is giving you the feedstock because it's contaminated? So what's your cost? Your cogs. Your cogs is very low, if not zero, but let's say that it's 10%. So you're running a gross margin business that is, if you run it at your own pace, it's gonna be a 90% gross margin business. So the point is that you have, the minute that they have R3 up and running, one, Ofer had mentioned several times that you can add, other reactors, because once you build the first, then that can take it from a pre-commercial unit to a commercial unit. But more importantly, as you said, you suddenly now you're on your path to not being dependent on the market. You're not dependent on others. And the other thing that you have done, which is very important, because I hear this quite often, people say, when is R3? Why does it have? Why are they not specific on timing? They're doing it the right way, because one of the things that people that have gone and seen the facility have said, you can see other companies that have had pyrolysis or other thermal technologies. They go and build a pilot and they can't run it and they're stuck with it, and they hope and pray that some client, like one of the 6 that we have that are paying us, will come in and say, we'll take you to the promised land of commercialization. Aduro is not thinking that way. Aduro is saying, from now, you're paying us for testing. And when we get to the R3, you're going to even pay us for the product because we have a valuable product. And on top of that, between now and then, we're going to see a collaboration or two. And a collaboration or two, based on what we've heard from Ofer and Eric, is somewhere between $500 and $1 million commitment of cash. But more importantly, why is a collaboration important? A collaboration means that this client has decided to say, we're going to be putting behind you the R&D and the engineering side to also help you with the commercialization of your unit. So think of it this way. You have Shell trying to, having their team helping. You have this new collaborator, let's say, that would join and will be helping you. You have Brightland helping you. You have Chill that's helping you. You know how many people are batting for you? Like, it is a perfect storm of so many people that if you were to hire as Aduro, it would have cost, I don't know, $10 million. But you are saving all that by having someone else take the burden. And that's why I think the genius in Ofer and the team is being able to start so early in charging people for testing, in charging people for this collaboration, because they are almost sharing the risk, but keeping the reward for the Aduro and the Aduro team.
But usually in the industry, this is not common to be
No,
charging for testing like this, right? The big boys
no.
don't want to pay you. They want you to do it on your own dime, and then they're like, well, if after you expense yourself, we might like it or not.
Yeah. So we talked about your introduction, why I said it's on a risk reward, it's undervalued. So when you introduced it, we didn't have these multi-billion-dollar clients under the CEP program. We didn't have a CEP program to start with. Now, one of the things that I have never even thought about is that they'd be able to convince clients, as you said, to pay for testing, but also remain independent while they do that. Because one of the biggest challenges is in this industry is all the other companies that you see out there, Mura, Laisala, so on. They are in bed with one or two major. So this mega player or two, they will be the ones that will decide their path. Aduro does not have that measure that is kind of choke them towards where they want them to go. And this is why we love it more, because, you know, suddenly at one point, I don't know when, but at one point, do we really think that an R3 being built, a pre-commercial unit being built, and a collaboration or two doesn't create so much competition between the existing and future as well as potential customers? Absolutely, it will. The ones that are existing, for sure, they're watching each other. They're watching what each other is doing, and that is the beauty of why I say that on a risk-adjusted basis, from the time that you introduce this to now, it's actually cheaper.
But why do you think these big players or Aduro was able to convince them to pay? Well, this is not unusual in the industry.
I think the reason is the same that we keep saying. It's the same as what Eric said. They go and see these. They started, let's say, before this batch. They see these results on batch. They're like, phenomenal. They now see the results on this R2 on a continuous flow. Now, again, I know that the retail is going to complain and say it's not enough. 99.9% will not be enough for retail because the stock price didn't go $3 up. Okay, but I'm talking about the industry experts. They're seeing this and they're saying there's nothing out there that matches these yields. And that is why they're willing to pay. They don't do it out of love. There's no such thing. It's business. And that's the other reason why, when people talk about the game changer, they're like, well, they said that they are in phase 4 as of the end of last year, and we haven't heard anything. Well, guess what? It's Shell, goddammit. They're a $250 billion company. They can do whatever they want and for as long as they want. So what did Aduro do for us as shareholders to avoid this dependence on one customer? They added 5 others so that no one can come and say, you know what? I know that I can hold you by my press release. They could have been done. And we don't know because you know what? They could say, you know what, we won't give you a press release. We won't give you what is the status of phase 5, phase 6. We're a multi-billion dollar company. Who are you? And that's why keeping, and everyone, I see it like with Penny, with yourself, with Ryan, everyone asks the same questions. What happened with the Shell Game Changer? They cannot tell you. They can't tell anyone what's happening with the Shell Game Changer. It's only when Shell allows it. So do we sit still? No, we have another 5 multi-billion dollar companies that are working with Aduro. We have, the team is not stopping. They're going to go and build the R3 now that they have the money. And there are other things like rubber tires is a separate subsegment that suddenly opened up. God knows what's happening with bitumen. God knows what's happening with other verticals. So you're like, stop focusing on the one thing that we don't know. Let's focus on what we know. And all of these things are significant value unlocks.
When it comes to R3, another thing that's important to understand about R3, the way I view it also is it's like building a first restaurant, showing how the restaurant operates, what kind of revenues and profits the restaurant will make. And then once we have that, once we have the financials for the restaurant, we can franchise it to others. Franchise that business model. You want to have a business like this? Well, you can. We can build it on your dime, and you're going to pay us a royalty.
And that is exactly it. The other part of it is we don't know if they're going to be left alone by R3. Like R3 could be that tipping point. Like anyone that have seen what happened with the AI craze should realize that stocks have an exuberance. There's kind of this like stage of nothing is happening. It seems like nothing is happening with the stock or the company because the stock is not moving, and people measure the barometer is always the stock price. So people are like, nothing is happening, nothing is happening, no one cares, no one cares. But suddenly when something happens and you have a barrage of interest for 25 million float, what can contain it? What happened to Nvidia in the last 24 months? I'm not saying this is an Nvidia. I'm just saying, look at what happened to a multi-billion dollar company. It went 5x in a span of less than 18 months with, trading, adding in the last, I know, in the I last count of how many billions of market cap has been added in just in the last few weeks. So using the share price as a barometer to what's happening underneath is wrong. It means that you haven't done your diligence. I don't really know when this, thing is going to go, but I do know, and I'm betting, and I'm like, we're both betting heavy on that moment. When does it happen? Does it happen in 3 months, 6 months, a year? I don't know. We don't know. What we do know is every time the investment thesis is becoming better and better, they are de-risking us more and more. Today, after today's news, we're sitting on 6+ million in the treasury. We can actually go and build an R3 without concern. In a time, just to remind everyone, in a time where Manish, you help companies, so do I. And in an environment where people, when you tell them, I want to raise $1 million for a micro cap, they're like, no, we don't want to touch it. People have not even gotten, like, I was looking at the VWAP. They didn't get like a 3% discount to VWAP. It is phenomenal. But it's because there are people on the other side of this dial that are seeing the value of what is there and saying this is undervalued. They've seen the Arrowhead report. They've seen the other work that, for example, Green Investing did a fantastic job with his analysis. But this is these are the people that are not going to be monitoring the share price every day. These are the people that know that there is value at one day is going to get unlocked. When is that one day? It's very difficult to know.
I do know when that's going to happen. When I post a picture of a cat with a Aduro sticker symbol that you can zoom in. Now, can you imagine what would happen to Aduro or GameStop if GameStop acquired Aduro? Can you imagine what would happen to it?
I can. I can. I think suddenly you'll have the same 500,000 plus people that joined that webinar are going to suddenly believe that Aduro is the best technology out there. And suddenly we're going to be $1 billion plus market cap in a heartbeat. And it will happen faster than everyone thinks. we're not. As much as I would love it to happen, because of personal gain, I think it's
Yeah,
not
well,
the
it's not
best.
going to happen with GameStop because the GameStop crowd is not interested in building value. Like they
No,
just want to
no,
buy
no.
air and like anything that's worthless. That's what they're interested. They would be happy if GameStop invested this $4 billion in some kind of shit coin.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah,
they
yeah.
would want. I mean,
Absolutely.
buying value and something that would change society. No, that's not the business we're in.
No, no. And I think you and Ryan had a very good conversation this weekend, and you touched on it. The idea that when you can show and when you're being tethered to like numbers and so on, then people can actually cross-reference the value. Whereas in the case of GameStop or a meme stock or a meme coin, what is the benchmark? The benchmark is the next person that is willing to pay higher. It's a fool's game. And the reality is, as I keep saying, we never know, because we might get luck. I mean, this is a story that people can get in love with very easy on the right exchange. And imagine if one of the idols, big names, gets behind this name. You and I will not be relevant in talking about Aduro. All the discussion about R3, whether R3 is built or not, Shell Game Changer will not matter, because enough crowd will be entertained by that said individual that will come in droves, and they will all fight for the same number of shares, 30 million, whatever number of shares that are float. That's it.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts?
No, I think, look, I mean, I've never been more excited. I've never been, in my opinion, again, I keep repeating, your audience are, in general, I think that, if you've stuck thus far, you obviously are after the diligence. You've given them enough diligence on this channel. I think 60 plus videos on Aduro. Anyone that has done their work can see it for what it is. Today is another milestone for all you shareholders that you got further de-risking. And and I believe that we will get, I don't know when, but my view is, if you are any of these 6 multi-billion-dollar companies, at one point you want to bet on the best technology. When does it happen? We don't know, but I definitely think it's going to happen this year, as they said. And I think we're going to see some interesting surprises this year. And who knows, like we're still, all this that we have seen so far was in the worst environment for microcaps for the last 2 years. Maybe even the microcap space gets a pulse. We don't know. But very exciting
It,
ahead of us.
yeah, I mean, it's pretty breathtaking to think that microcap space is in the worst space in 30 years. So you have like low valuations for all of them pretty much. And then you're sitting on a company that I mean, I just still can't believe this is true. A company that has the best solution for a problem that is so massive, and it's massive not just from the point of view of making money, massive from a point of view of making it's like finding cure for cancer, and you're the only one that has that, and we're sitting at a valuation of
70
100
million.
million. I
Yeah,
mean, that's what I'm saying.
yeah, nothing.
Paging Rory Kitty. Paging Rory. I mean, you see what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
it's crazy that we're sitting at this valuation, and that's it. That's I'm just gonna leave it at that.
yeah. I think that will change, and I think the reason why I mentioned having a vocal voice that steps into this. There is no way that I can see this company not having someone that has a, you know, like, this is a story everyone wants to cheer for. I love cheering for this company. I'm invested in so many other companies. This is my largest micro cap position because obviously fundamentals, but this is such a social story. Imagine when you're sitting with your grandkids one day and telling them, I was behind this company. No matter what happens down the road, this is such a huge social, like, you are behind something that is so big. It's way bigger than you and I on this call.
Yeah. All right. Good. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. Have a good one.